It's SEC Championship week, and could you guess it? Who's playing in this game? Alabama and Georgia. We have the only person we could ever want to talk Alabama, Georgia in the SEC Championship. Welcome to Beat Everyone. I'm Ben Flanagan. He's the film guy. Check out the Film Guy Network. You can also catch him on the Paul Feinbaum Show on the SEC Network these days. Brooks Austin, welcome back. Are your stomach and heart full after Thanksgiving and rivalry weekend?
Oh my God, what a weekend of college football. Friday, at noon, the clean old-fashioned hate was a sweater, 16-9, down to the fourth quarter. We got a Hail Mary opportunity to convert that one to a tie game, get some free ball. Friday night, you get Texas upsetting A&M. Noon on Saturday, we get the game, and that lived up to it for about 2.5 quarters. We at least got snow flurries in the third of that one. 3:30 kicks off. We get Tennessee and Vandy and the Diego Pavia show. Oregon in a fourth quarter sweater all the way until the last 8 minutes of that one. Don't know if people knew about that between them and Washington. Then, of course, the Iron Bowl at night at Jordan-Hare. No matter what, it's a toss the records out football game. Always has been, always will be. It showed up to be exactly that on Saturday night. And as Bama has done in these tight football games all year long, it seems, apart from two, or at least one of them wasn't tight, the one that they lost to Florida State, but they keep finding ways to win critical moments and critical downs. No more obvious than that last scoring drive for Alabama.
I want to get back to the criticals in just a minute because that was a point you made a while back about this Alabama team. You couldn't have been more right. But Brooks, you posted a video about the confidence level of Alabama football fans. You basically said there's no way Alabama fans won't feel confident by Saturday. You rather emphatically said that you would go on Alabama podcasts and tell hosts asking if Alabama even has a chance against Georgia to shut up and do not act as if Alabama doesn't have a mental edge in this game. Why are you, Brooks Austin, why are you so confident that Alabama should feel confident about playing Georgia again?
Because I've seen it. I've seen it on tape. I've seen it on television. I've seen it on the sidelines. I've seen it where you can watch that whole entire Alabama football team come onto the sideline and look as if they will never be beaten the rest of their livelihoods with regards to football. When they play that red and black, they feel that way. And look, you can see it on tape as well. And we'll show you this on film this week. If you watch our Alabama offensive breakdown we just put out on YouTube, you will see players like Isaiah Horton maybe not necessarily being as physically dominant as they should be at the point of the attack in the run game. A very critical thing, right? And then you turn the tape on against Georgia on the road in Athens, and he's putting his face through people. And it's I don't know what it is. I can't quantify it. There is no quantification of it. There's no, I can't realistically place a data point on it or a reason why I believe this way. But until it is wrong, I said this on your show the last time when they played in October, until Georgia beats Alabama, outside of that one time in the national championship game, I will probably pick Alabama to win the football game. And look, Georgia, apart from the offensive performance against Georgia Tech, Georgia's been playing really, really good football for 8 or 9 weeks now. They've been playing great football defensively for 2 months solid. So, there's a lot of reasons to feel good if you're a Georgia football player, but not if you're a Georgia fan. No way you can feel good about this against that other team.
Brooks, something Alabama fans have not felt as confident about, surprisingly, is Ty Simpson during the last stretch of the season. And he seemed to get a little bit of his mojo back against Auburn, but he struggled in the last few games. He's seen a lot of pressure in the pocket. Jam Miller's status is obviously uncertain after showing a lot of improvement the last couple of games. Josh Cuevas, big weapon for Ty Simpson, is going to be out. Ryan Williams, total mystery right now. Everybody's banged up this time of year, but how do you think Kirby Smart approaches Alabama differently in the rematch?
Hell, Brailsford's banged up too, the center for Alabama. It's a banged up bunch. How do you approach them differently? Well, first and foremost, you got to be a whole hell of a lot better on third down than you were the last time, okay? They cannot go 9 for 9 on their first 9 third downs. They will beat you again because they will surmount a lead that seems to be ungarnerable, okay? And that's what happened the last time. So that's first and foremost. Just got to be much better on third down. And historically speaking, and even within the sample size of this season, you're just not going to do that again. Alabama didn't do that again against another defense. They probably won't do it against Georgia again this weekend. History says that. You know, I know that because Georgia hadn't given up 9 of their first 9 third downs in the 10 years that Kirby Smart had been here. It just does not happen. So when you get put into that many of them, normally you get up off the field. Alabama went, I think, 6 of their 13 drives against Auburn going 3 and out. So this has been a staggering offense as of late. Now, a lot of that is because of who they have played. We talked about this with Georgia's defense this year. Everybody's like, midway through the year, like, what's going on with that Georgia defense? What's going on? They just got done playing Tennessee and Alabama. Calm down. Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss, 3 of the best offenses in the sport. What's going on with Alabama's offense? Well, calm down. They just got done playing Oklahoma and Auburn. Like, it'll be all right. Those are 2 damn good defenses, boys.
Were Georgia fans not aware of the phrase "third and Kirby" before he came to Athens, Brooks?
Was that a thing?
That was a thing. That was a thing. As accomplished as Kirby Smart is, Alabama fans fret over the smallest things. When one bad thing happens, they're ready to throw you out to the pasture. But yeah, we'll see. I don't expect that. That seems like an anomaly, like you just explained. But we won't know what will happen. Obviously, we can't see into the future. But you're as good at this as anybody, especially at diagnosing matchups. What matchup do you see ultimately deciding this game if you had to pick one?
So it is that pre-snap adjustment matchup that I think Alabama has lost on the offensive side of the football the last 2 football games. Take the pick 6, for example. The pick 6 against Oklahoma is Alabama trying to check at the line of scrimmage into a different play. Oklahoma then checking out of what they were in defensively and bumping into another defensive structure, and then the ball being snapped. And now what I thought was going to happen has now changed defensively. That's the easiest way I can try to auditorially explain mix-match or disguising defensive coverage. If you watch the first drive against Auburn, Auburn starts the football game in the first snap with a 2-high structure. They then break that into a 1-high structure as the ball is snapped. All right? There's a third down later in the football game where they're showing 1-high and then bump into a 3-high and send a 6-man blitz. Like, that's what you got to do to a football team that's trying to figure out all of the answers pre-snap and then getting the right play called and then executing that play in post-snap. Like, the amount of times in the first 6 weeks I saw Ty Simpson get to the top of his drop and throw a anticipatory ball into a zone window, right? Those cover 2 hold throws is what we call those. How many of those did you see earlier in the year where, my God, how did he know that was going to be open? Well, he knew what they were running pre-snap and just executed what it was happening post-snap. Well, if we change that look on him, we can give him a little bit more problems, or at least hopefully make him hold the football, which I think is what some teams have done to him as of late.
I mean, Nick Saban said it on game day, right? What does Auburn have to do to beat Alabama? At least, stay in the game, disguise coverages, disguise it, and confuse Ty Simpson. And they did a pretty good job of that for a while and got good pressure on him. But he just made the throws. Last time we talked to you, you talked about how Alabama wins criticals. You just said it a few minutes ago. They win the downs. They make the plays they absolutely have to have. The 3rd down conversions, the 4th down conversions, the 2-point conversions. They did it against Georgia and Athens. They did it again against Auburn and Jordan-Hare. After a season of success on the criticals, how does that type of battle-tested experience help Alabama in a game like this?
Oh, you just have a sense of confidence that you can do those things. Like, if you really, really watch closely that last drive, guys, there's a 3rd and 5 there on the goal line right before the 4th and 2. There's a 3rd and 5 right there on the goal line where Ty Simpson's under center. They send a motion. He then backs up from underneath the center. They reset the running back. They then give a false clap and then give a hard clap, then snap the football. That's on the road in the 4th quarter in a moment where we have to have an opportunity to win. Like, if we get a false start there, God forbid, if we are not disciplined, if the freshman right tackle has any type of anything, it's 3rd and 10 and the whole possession might be chalked. Like, that's where we don't blink anymore, because we've done this 1,000 different times in 100 different settings where it's felt like it's either crap or get off the pot offensively for this team. It's been pressurized for this team offensively in these situations. Got to win the criticals every single time. Got to stack drives every single time. It's just used to it. Like, you're just used to it at this point. So you ask where it benefits you. You've been there before. You feel this. You understand what the weight of the pressure is, and you understand how not to crack. That's the simplest way to explain it.
Brooks, you seem most at home when you're just grinding film, as people say, right? So I hate to ask you to put on your college football playoff committee hat here. So Georgia's in. They're in win or lose. They're in the 12-team playoff for a second year in a row. They just need to prove that they can beat Alabama. That's the big narrative around Georgia. The stakes are obviously much higher for DeBoer and his team. Playoff is on the line, but a lot of people think that win or lose, Alabama still deserves a spot. They're the number 1 seed in the SEC championship game. They technically had the best season of any of the 16 teams in the best conference in college football, and a loss in this game could keep them out of it. Brooks, does Alabama belong in the playoff no matter the outcome this weekend?
Look, my opinion is yes. Like I'm not punishing football teams for what they do in their conference championship games. Okay, I'm definitely not dropping them behind other teams who are in conference championship games. But here is the nightmare scenario. And look, I'm not saying this. You asked me my opinion. My opinion: Alabama's a playoff team. Okay, there it is. That's that. But here's the nightmare scenario, because it is very clear to me that this college football playoff committee, through 6 of these rankings that we've had, does not care about quality wins. All they care about is stacking the wins columns, stacking the loss columns, and then quantifying those losses. Which one of these losses is ugly? Which one of these losses is pretty? Which one of these losses can we justify? They don't care about who you've beaten or who you can beat. That's a topic of discussion for a different day with this committee. We know this. Look at Notre Dame's rankings in relative to Alabama, Texas, and obviously Miami. They don't care about who you beat. All they care about is quantifying the losses. So nightmare scenario is that BYU finds a way to beat Texas Tech this weekend, and then Texas Tech sitting there with 2 losses. You're sitting there with 3. Their second loss came in a conference title game. They have waxed everybody in their conference slate up to this point, apart from Arizona State, in which they were playing a backup quarterback. You see what I'm doing? There's going to be a lot of justifying here. There's going to be a lot of lobbying. There's going to be a lot of moving. Apart from, unless you handle your business, win the SEC championship game, nothing matters, or hope that Texas Tech beats the doors off BYU and then nothing matters.
Win and they're in. Brooks, let's go from one complete mess to an even worse one real quick. Lane Kiffin. So the college football calendar, the transfer portal, National Signing Day, Jimmy Sexton, nature of the business, all that noted, right? Your thoughts on the move Kiffin made from Ole Miss to LSU when his now former team is on their way to this season's college football playoff?
Look, I understand that the college football calendar is a mess. I could fix it in a matter of 30 seconds. Everyone knows the answer to it. The answer about the college football calendar is simple. Stop associating college football players with the academic calendar as if they're still student athletes. I know it sounds so crazy. God forbid we act like these guys are a little bit professionals, or that their calendar matters, because their calendar does matter. It should be professionalized. And the only way we have to do it, the only way we should do it, is say, all right, January to February, all right, instead of January 15th being add drop period for the academic calendar, football players get till February 1st to decide where they want to go to school, and that's fine. Boom, done. Solid. I just solved it. Now, that being said, Lane Kiffin, tough spot. Everybody knows if you have the opportunity to coach Ole Miss or LSU in a vacuum, you're taking LSU. But we weren't in a vacuum, and we all knew he was probably going to take this job. We all thought that. So why did he insist the last 6 weeks on trolling his entire fan base out there at Ole Miss? It didn't have to be this ugly. It didn't have to be this like filled with vitriol at the end of it. I don't think there was ever a situation where this is happy hunky ho dory, because he left Ole Miss for LSU. And despite what the outsider thinks about Ole Miss football fans are really, really proud of that place, and they hate LSU. So will y'all please, for the love of God, stop demeaning their opinions about this and their feelings. No, he can't coach the playoff team. No, he shouldn't be able to coach the playoff team. Yes, they're allowed to be pissed off on his way out.
Noted. Brooks, I mean, on that note, a couple more things for you, because we got to let you go. You shared some grades for the SEC head coaching hires. There were a lot of them.
Yeah.
You gave Ole Miss an A+ for naming Pete Golding their permanent coach. Why an A+?
The situation they were left in left them 2 options, and only one of them was the right answer. The other one would have been a catastrophic mistake. All right, the 2 options when your football coach leaves Ole Miss to go to LSU on an 11-1 roster in which you are positioned currently to host a playoff game is to obviously promote an interim head football coach. You have to make a decision. So they chose to go with Pete Golding. Now, at that point, you have one of 2 choices. You can either make him an interim football coach, pat him on the butt, hope he does a great job in the college football playoff, and then open your coaching search January 20th or whenever you lose your last football game. Don't know if you guys have looked at this point, but there ain't all that many good head football coaches left on the candidates list at this point. So what did y'all expect them to do? They had 2 options. Hope there's somebody good for us at the end of January, or go with the interim and tell him we believe in him and give him, hope and promise that he is our long-term solution. I thought they had two options. One was a positive, one was an epic failure and a bad decision. They chose the good one.
A+. We wish Pete Golding well, man. I think Alabama fans, if they don't make the playoff, they would love nothing more than to see Ole Miss make a miraculous run under Pete Golding. And who knows, truly. Last thing, for real, Auburn hired Alex Golish. You liked that hire too, but Auburn fans, they seem happy about it, but there's obviously some trepidation about the future of their roster, about turnover that could happen. What do you see in Auburn right now? You like the hire, but
I just hope that everybody knows he's a good football coach. He's process oriented. He's detail oriented. He's really, really smart. He works really, really hard. He's never going to be golfing. You don't even golf. This is a good hire. Do not get me wrong. It's a great hire. Anything's an improvement from Hugh Freeze. If anybody's heard my opinions on it, everybody knows where I was stood with that guy. Okay. But you just hired a wide choice football coach. I hope y'all know that. I hope y'all understand what that means. That means you're going to get anti-recruited against because your offense is going to be labeled gimmicky. Whether or not that's true, it doesn't matter. You're going to get told your quarterbacks don't get developed. You're going to get told receivers go there to die. You're going to get told the defense is going to get put into bad positions because they play way too fast and they do all the stuff that wide choice offenses come with. I hope they know that that's what they signed up for. And look, it took Tennessee fans like 12 months to get behind this. Been like, oh, and also 52 points per game in 2022. That's what it took. Y'all got to have one of these seasons before everybody's like, oh, the offense works. If it goes out and it don't work, your whole fan base is probably gonna be like, oh, it's because we hired a gimmick offense. It's not a gimmick offense. It works. It works to the tune of playoffs and 10 wins. But you have to know what it is. And I don't know if the Auburn fan base as a whole knew that they just hired an offense that is Mississippi State, that is Tennessee. And I'm sure that's a fan base that every time they've played those football teams the last couple of years, if they have, probably goes, oh, look at this gimmick offense they run. That's your offense now. So let's go delete some tweets. You know what I mean?
Alabama fans are going to hate hearing this, Brooks, as I'm sure you well know. Turkey Day is over. We are still thankful for this guy. You got to check out the Film Guy Network. Watch him on the Paul Feinbaum Show on the SEC Network. You're a busy man this week, and really as long as you want to keep doing this, Brooks, go yell at some other Alabama podcast hosts. Brooks Austin, we appreciate you, man. Thank you.
No doubt. Be good, Ben.
Ben Flanagan back here on Beat Everyone, joined now by Beat Everyone producer Matt Scalisi. Matt, we're fresh off of the Iron Bowl. Worst game in the world. We don't enjoy watching it. And
Miserable.
It lived up to the hype. Look, you wrote a great piece last week about how, and you coined the phrase on this podcast, and you wrote about it for AL.com, how Jordan-Hare is a portal to hell. And I think that if you watched the opening sequence, the light show, the fireworks, everything turning orange, like it lived up to the hype. And then the game lived up to being awful and the thing that everybody dreads for good reason. I don't know that there were like the Jordan-Hare, like cosmic haunted things that were happening this time, or that Alabama just couldn't pull their heads out of their you-know-what after blowing a 17-point lead.
Yeah, I don't think that anything any Auburn shenanigans particularly happened in this game. It's just that look, most of my predictions in my career as a sports writer have made me look like a complete idiot. And so it's nice to have one that kind of came through for me for once. But it's just that team is energized by its fan base. The fan base always gets up and stays up for this particular game. And it kept them in the game. Alabama had opportunities to close the door and step on Auburn's neck in this game. And for a variety of reasons that we've talked about on this show, that they ran the ball better in this game, but they don't have the ability for 60 straight minutes of clock time to just line up and keep hammering it on them. They offensively, I think, stalled out about as many times as they successfully moved the ball down the field. And ultimately, because of that, they gave Auburn that window to start mounting a comeback. And I think obviously credit to these guys for making huge plays in the highest pressure possible situation. But they're in that situation because they weren't making the plays earlier. And I don't entirely put it on the players. I think there was some questionable stretches of offensive play calling in this game, but holding a team like this, playing for everything to 20 points in this game, I think it was an incredible effort by Kane Womack in the defense. And I think ultimately the offense showed they still have the juice. They still have the playmakers to make a huge clutch play when they absolutely have to.
Yeah, I don't put it on the players either because I think back to when it was 17-0, Alabama's leading, and Alabama gets the ball back. They've got an opportunity to go up 20-0, 24-0, and on first down, Grubb dials up this double reverse weird pass play that ends up with Ty Simpson's face or head hitting the ground again.
He took a
And
lot of punishment in this game.
oh yeah, a lot of pressure all game, and that's obviously a concern for the rest of the way. Certainly this weekend against Georgia, but it like obviously we know football is a game of momentum, and it just seemed like it totally swung in Auburn's like favor after that play, and they could have executed better on second and third down, and it would have been a different story. So maybe you put that on the players or the I don't know, but I agree with you. I thought that they played great. It was a hostile environment. I think Ty Simpson got a little bit of his mojo back. I think that he made throws that we've seen Ty Simpson make all year. He didn't have the number of yards we're used to seeing, and but I think that he looked happy out there. He looked like he was enjoying himself playing. Isaiah Horton with a huge breakout game. It's just like thank God that guy transferred from Miami and has just been pretty steady all season for Alabama and has become a favorite target of Ty Simpson. So it was a tough game. It was an iron ball in Auburn, and that's just what we're used to. It sucks and it's worth dreading. But at the same time, Alabama's now what 3 straight wins in Jordan-Hare and now 6 straight wins in this series. And we just got word on Auburn's future, and we can say a few things about that in just a second. But I don't know. I mean, like if you're an Alabama fan, got to feel happy going back to Atlanta.
Just appreciate that these Iron Bowls in Auburn the last 3 times out there were wins. They absolutely didn't have to be. They were millimeters from not being. And you have to enjoy it. You have to appreciate what it was. I have another column coming this week about the Iron Bowl and kind of where I think it is as a rivalry right now. But it's a weird moment. This is I would say this has been a stretch where Alabama's certainly not at its absolute peak of its powers since 2020, but they've been still had a huge distinct advantage in this series, and yet Auburn has been competitive more often than not, and Alabama found ways to win these games in the kind of ways that Auburn found ways to win during the Saban era. This is an interesting moment for the rivalry. Auburn has been a laughingstock for basically all of the 2020s. And I while it's great for Alabama fans to have this win streak over them, I think part of the nervousness that Bama fans have had going into these games losing to Auburn always sucks, period, 100% of the time. You really don't want to lose to a bad Auburn team. The humiliation that would come along with that is it adds pressure to it in a way. And I think even though look, you don't ever want Auburn to be good or have an advantage if you're Alabama. That's normal rivalry stuff. But ultimately beating Auburn when they're a good team and you get credit for it is probably beneficial to Alabama. It's probably a better thing for that team to be respectable nationally. Because even though, look, you and I understand what's going on in these games in Jordan-Hare. Everybody else around the country that doesn't want to give the SEC or give Alabama credit, they can look at this and say Alabama played badly against a bad Auburn team. It's BS. It's shows a lack of understanding of what's going on. But Alabama they don't get any credit for doing something like that. They only can lose in an Iron Bowl against a bad laughing stock of an Auburn program. And I think Auburn's not going to be like that for much longer.
Well, to your point, you're watching the game, and if you look at the screen and you see the score graphic at all times under each of the teams, you see their records,
Mm-hmm.
their overall record and their SEC record, and constantly staring at you in the face is Auburn 1-6 in the SEC, and this 1-6 team who is bad, and they're 5-6 overall, and they have fired their coach, and they can't decide on a quarterback, and they have no offensive identity. Their best win is against a bad Arkansas team, and they had just lost to a really bad Kentucky team who also just fired their coach.
Yes.
And Alabama's on the cusp of potentially losing to that team.
It
would've been
doesn't.
awful.
It's bad. It doesn't look good for you. But look, and I'm not trying to be an Auburn apologist in here or anything. This Auburn team never got blown out by anybody. They were
They played
actually
good teams close.
they were very competitive in all of these games they lost. And in fact, a great line from the broadcast of this game, which I enjoyed. I liked hearing Chris Fowler call this game. It made it feel more big time to me. He at one point, I think right after the Cam Coleman fumble that essentially ended the game, he said Auburn keeps finding ways to lose close games this season. That is a great summary of how this season went for Auburn. They were actually pretty talented, and I think you could certainly look at Auburn's defense in this game and say they've got some talented guys on that defense. They just everything about what Alabama did at the end of this game and the end of South Carolina, uh, and the end of the Georgia game, right? That sort of intangible. These guys make the big play when they have to make it. Auburn didn't have it this year, and I think that can scare you. That should scare you a little bit as an Alabama fan, I think, because what it says to me is really the only thing they're missing is leadership. And Alex Golish is a lot more impressive to me than either of the last two Auburn head coaches have been. And that's based on day one impressions. I liked his opening press conference. I thought he was likable. He was easy to see why kids would want to play for him. And he came off very impressively to me.
He's all football, and I think he's a hire that Alabama fans didn't want to hear. I think Alabama fans were hoping and praying that they would retain DJ Durkin as the
Yeah.
permanent head coach, and maybe he sticks around as the defensive coordinator. We don't know yet, but Golish is a good coach, and he's all football. And what a lot of people are joking about now is that Auburn only hired him because he played Alabama close twice, and so that makes him like the Zach Calzada of Auburn coaching candidates, I guess. But look, I mean, he did, right? And he was competitive with it. Like
he gave Alabama hell in those games.
He did. I mean, the 2024 game, I think, like it ended up being a blowout according to the score, but it was much closer, and it took a couple of late Alabama explosive plays to blow it open. And the year before, that was a little different too. I mean, Alabama's starting quarterback isn't playing because Nick Saban's trying to teach him a lesson. They're in a tsunami down in South Florida. So
one of the weirdest games in modern Alabama football. Yeah.
So you got to look at the context of those games. But the point is that he had those guys ready, and he wanted to win, and he was disappointed after those games too. I remember distinctly how upset Golish was after coming this close and not getting the job done. And he wasn't, I think the phrase he used was like, there are no moral victories. We're not happy about this. So he's got the attitude, and he's obviously coached himself into this position. So I think it spells a little, I'm not going to say trouble for Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, but I think that it's going to be an interesting series in the foreseeable future, right? It's not going to be like 6 games isn't going to turn into 10 anytime soon.
No, he's got an uphill battle, but like I said, Auburn was not a million miles away from being a much better team this season. I mean, we're talking about a matter of a play or two here in a lot of these games that they lost. The roster is better than it was when Hugh Freeze took over. I just think these guys in their sort of DNA of the program now have forgotten how to win and forgotten how to make big things happen. And it may not take as much to get it turned around. But look, from an Alabama standpoint, again, you never want to see your rivals do well, but ultimately it's been shown, I think, to be a good thing to be a part of big time football games, right? Alabama has had these rivalries over the course of the last 20 years that I think benefited Alabama from national exposure, from the way people look at you, and winning games like that sticks in people's minds, sticks in the committee's mind. It was LSU for a while. There have been several of those games with Georgia. It feels like a big deal when you win a game like that. And I think the Iron Bowl, I mean, look, who knows what's going to happen at LSU, but the Iron Bowl could be one of those, and I think it may not necessarily be a bad thing for Alabama to be involved in a rivalry that everybody unquestionably says this is the big game of rivalry week.
Quick chatter on LSU and Lane Kiffin. He leaves Ole Miss, who are in the playoff, for LSU, who are conceivably in the playoff in the years that he's coaching there, right? And there's better infrastructure, better fan base, there's more money, there's like just more resources for Lane Kiffin to be consistently successful on a national level in Baton Rouge. And I think everybody knows that and understands why it's a better job and why he would leave Ole Miss for it. But the way he did it, Matt, is one for not just the books, many books. People will write about this. Just the state of college football in 2025 is such that it will be hard to explain to future generations what happened this past weekend with Lane Kiffin. How do you diagnose what you saw from him in the aftermath?
I mean, Ben, I'm a big believer that people can change. But I think usually it has to come from some amount of pressure. I think you have to be induced to change. You have to face the possibility of losing everything and suffering consequences that you're not willing to endure to really change who you are as a person. And Lane Kiffin, I would have said the same thing about Hugh Freeze, right? Why would this guy change when all of the mistakes he made resulted in him getting the best job of his career? Lane Kiffin has failed over and over and over again, and now he's in the playoffs, and he has every program in college football beating his door down. So why would he doubt himself? Why would he say, I need to be a different person? He's got no outside pressure to change his ways because it always works out for him. He always finds his way back, and he's convinced that moving on to the next thing is always a good decision. And I don't think that LSU should feel comfortable that they're necessarily the last stop for Lane Kiffin. Do you really think, looking at this guy's Wikipedia page, that you're going to be the last entry? There ain't no way. This guy has decades left of career in him, and there's many more subheads to be added to his Wikipedia page. I am confident of that.
So you're saying people can change. Lane Kiffin's hair slicks back really well, I think. Matt. I don't know if you watch. I think you should leave, but go Google it.
I said I used to be a bad guy.
This is pushed back. It's Lucy. It's Charlie Brown and Lucy in the football.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss went for the kick. They did, and they didn't think she'd pull it back. Like, look, man, like we know his history. They knew his history and listen, like I see this two different ways. He should have finished the season, like bar none. Like, to me, like if you're somebody who has conviction, principle, like whatever, like if you tell these guys that sports are about teamwork and about uniting to like accomplish a goal, you're in the playoff, dude. And this is
what college football is supposed to be about. You're supposed to try to win a national championship,
right?
And now you're bailing when you finally got a shot to do it.
It's tricky though, Matt, because I mean the whole college football season and calendar and signing day and the portal and all this stuff. Like, I get all that, and if Lane Kiffin had let the LSU job go so that he could finish this season, Ole Miss is probably going to say, okay, well, very publicly agree to an extension here, right? And announce that you're going to be here for the foreseeable future. And maybe he could have done that and got out of it. And who knows? Jimmy Sexton could work his mat. Speaking of Jimmy Sexton, all I could think about was the end of Inglourious Bastards when Brad Pitt says, "I think this might be my masterpiece." That's Jimmy Sexton right now in college football.
Yeah, an absolute
completely.
bloody scene where the sort of screams of those left in the dust are all that's left. It's Ole Miss. It's easy to laugh at Ole Miss, especially if you're another SEC fan. But man, this is a special kind of heartbreak because this is really, I think Shula era Bama fans can appreciate this, right? The idea of understanding that you are not top tier. You are not one of the big programs in college football. You're always looking up at those guys. You know they laugh at you. You know they don't really take you seriously. And now you finally think you've made your way up to another class. They let you in the club. They call you sir, and they finally respect you. And then bang, it's all gone again. You're out on your ass in the street, and they're all laughing at you again.
But they shook hands and teamed up with Ric Flair, and then they were shocked. When he hit him in the back with a
I agree.
Stick.
This is I don't remember who said it. That's the old fable of the scorpion and the frog, right? Like this is what Lane Kiffin will do to you every time. You have, in some ways, you have only yourself to blame for ever thinking this isn't how it was going to end. But that said, I do think this is illustration number 5,000 of how this sport's lack of structure and regulation just leads to everybody getting screwed other than Jimmy Sexton, essentially. But like it's not, I am sure even Lane Kiffin isn't really happy about how this went down. I think he clearly like wanted a different outcome. He wanted to have it both ways, which is unreasonable, but like he's unhappy about the fact that he's not going to get to coach this Ole Miss team through the playoffs. The players aren't happy about it. Ole Miss isn't happy. LSU, I guess, is temporarily happy, but now everybody hates your coach and everybody thinks you guys are scumbags. You're about to be heels for years now. It's just not. This is what happens when there's no structure in place at all. There are no rules. It's complete Wild West. And until college football gets serious and starts acting like the pro sport that it actually is, this kind of stuff is going to be normal. Every November, December in college football, this kind of stuff is going to keep happening.
But Matt, it's tough because we're an Alabama show, and Alabama fans, there's obviously a big connection to Lane Kiffin in his 3 years where he was OC, and there's a lot of affection that Alabama fans have for Lane Kiffin.
But he left here the same way.
Here's my point.
Yeah.
But here's my point. And he's funny and he's entertaining. And there are a lot of Alabama fans who wanted him to be the head coach at Alabama too. And he's an offensive genius. And there are a lot of like football things that make sense for Lane Kiffin and his success. But go through his career and see how things ended almost everywhere he went, with the exception of Florida Atlantic, right? Where everybody knew that he was going to leave that job for a better job. But if you go to Oakland and you go to his head coaching run at USC and obviously Tennessee and then Alabama and what happened here and then now Ole Miss, it's like, for my last pop culture parallel, my wife, when we were talking about it the other day, you remember the movie Primal Fear with Richard Gere? And,
Edward Norton.
Yeah, spoiler alert for that movie, but it's about Edward Norton has multiple personalities. But at the end, the big reveal has happened, and Richard Gere is like, "Oh my God, so you're telling me there never was a Roy?" And he says, "No, there never was an Aaron. There never was an Aaron. There wasn't like there was never the night. Like I'm sure Lane Kiffin's a nice guy and cares about his family and all that stuff. Like I'm not trying to like attack that aspect of him or anything, but like who he is by now. And if you're LSU, you have to look at the law of averages and think, well, it might not end very well here either.
Ben,
So
there's the story of America in the 21st century is largely about con men and groups of people who look at the con man, know that he's conned a bunch of people, and then say, "But not me, though. He won't get me, though." That happens in every level of every part of life in this country, and it's just I can't explain why it happens, but everybody just wants to believe it's going to be different with me. And look, I think it's going to be very interesting to see and very entertaining to see what happens of with the Lane Kiffin era in LSU. They're happy about him today, but Lane Kiffin has not won a national championship as a head coach. And LSU is expecting him to do it. Ole Miss wasn't expecting him to win a national championship. At LSU, if he does not have them a national title, or at least have them very close to winning one within 3 years, they're going to toss him out just like they did Brian Kelly, or he might start looking somewhere else himself. It just it is not going to be normal. That's the one guarantee I can make about it.
He could have coached at Ole Miss for decades, but it's just clear that's not his style to do that. He doesn't stay anywhere but 6 years though. And like if you're looking at this from Lane Kiffin's point of view, and he talks himself up in his interviews with Marty Smith, and as well he should, because I mean this guy is a candidate for these big jobs and he needs to point out what he has accomplished. But at LSU, 3 straight 10-win seasons, they're 11-1 for the first time ever. They're going to the college football playoff. I mean, he was there for 6 years, which is a long time for Lane Kiffin, and then he literally left you in the middle of a chance to win a national championship. So it's not the worst thing in the world, right? And he did a lot of good for them. But I got to tell you, those people at the airport in the just absolute reign of terror they were throwing out as he walked from the SUV to the private plane, it was hilarious. And but he feeds off of that stuff,
yes,
man.
He loves it.
It.
Yeah. I mean, and he's gonna openly troll Ole Miss. He is not going to have the sort of affection that somebody like, say, Nick Saban had for LSU, even though obviously they had some intense games, but like Nick Saban still speaks very fondly of LSU. That's not the kind of relationship that Lane's going to have with Ole Miss going forward. That the bridge is burned, and I think as much as he did accomplish there, Ole Miss fans are going to hate this guy forever. He is their Dennis Franchione. He left them in a lurch. Different situation because but in some ways it's worse than what Franchione did because Alabama lost him when things were getting tough. Ole Miss lost him when they had the chance to accomplish the greatest feat in the history of Ole Miss football. They were on the door of it.
They're still on the door, though. They're still
we'll
there.
see.
They're going to play in the playoff.
Right.
So they're probably like nobody thinks they're going to win. We would love it if they made a run. It would be incredibly entertaining, but it's not like him leaving means they can't play in the playoff now. Although crazy things have happened from the committee, right? Where they have said, "Hey, you're starting quarterbacks out. You can't be in the playoff." Yeah. So weird things happen, but we all think that Ole Miss is going to have a spot in the playoffs. So anyway, it's been so entertaining, and I can't get enough of it. And but I mean, the guy still has head coach of Ole Miss in his Twitter bio right now.
Tragedy is when it happens to me, but it's comedy when it happens to somebody else. So that's Alabama fans for now. This is an enjoyable mess and saga, and just be grateful that you're not part of it.
All right, well, let's be done, Matt. We've already gone on long enough here about Lane Kiffin, but I mean, there are ramifications for Alabama football with Lane Kiffin at LSU, obviously, and we have no idea how it's going to work out, but he can coach, and he'll be able to recruit, and he will be competing with Alabama and the other top teams in the SEC moving forward. So that's why That's why we're so interested in this. And Lane
How
Kiffin,
many wins
an
does he
entertaining
have?
guy.
How many wins does he have against Alabama as a head coach, Ben? Just off the
Z-
top of your head.
is it 0?
It is
Right,
0.
0. No conference championship appearances, let alone wins
That's
in the
right.
SEC. Certainly hasn't been in the playoff until now, but that wasn't good enough. I thought Marty Smith asked a great question when in his 5-minute interview with him, where he just said, "Look, like you're in the playoff now. You might make the playoff when you're at LSU. What does LSU have that Ole Miss can't give you?" And he didn't really answer the question. And he's in a tough spot right now, sure enough. But it's a like a circus soap opera, like doesn't even begin to describe what this is. But we're gonna hear from him in just a little bit, and I'll be tuning in.
Yeah. Well, look, we did our best with making a copious amount of metaphors to our favorite shows and movies here, Ben.
More of that to come.
This is just how we talk about the world now.
That's right. All right. Well, thanks, Matt. He's producer Matt Scalisi. Find his work on AL.com. There's going to be a lot more to come. Big game this week. Alabama goes to Atlanta. They play Georgia again. Will they make the playoff, win or lose? We'll find out. We'll be here to talk about it, and we'll have more leading up to this Georgia game soon. So check us out. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everywhere. Rate us, review us. It really helps us out. Leave us some comments, and we'll read them on the show. In the meantime, I'm Ben Flanagan. Thank you very much, folks.